Something to Offer, the show that goes to the heart of people living their dreams. And we'll meet them in just a moment. I am so thrilled to have a woman who I've known for many years and has been a guest on our show before. She has spent over 20 years as a coach and trainer for marathon runners, as well as people just interested in running. She began her career in 1992, began her business, I believe, out of her apartment originally, and opened her first running training studio, the first and only in New York City, in 2006, but I'm thinking that was the other location, but you'll answer that in a minute. And she's in a wonderful location right near Columbus Circle right now. It's called the Running Center. She holds a U.S. track and field running coach certification, as well as the American Council of Exercise certification as a personal trainer. She's appeared on many television shows, mine, but Good Morning America, CBS This Morning, CNN Today. She's contributing writer for several fitness and running magazines, Shape, Fitness, you name them, you could find Mindy's writing something somewhere. She is no stranger to this show either, and it is my pleasure to welcome Mindy Sulkin to the show again today. Thank you for coming back and visiting us again, Mindy.
Thank you for having me, Anne-Marie. It's great to be here.
I'm very excited. Now, Mindy, as a runner yourself, when you have run and you still run a bit, where would you say, or where do some of perhaps the people you train runners, this is probably going to be an odd question, but I'm sure it comes to play sometimes when you're running, even though I know you have to be very focused. In your opinion, like a visually inspiring, visually for a runner to run, a place like somewhere in the city or somewhere in another country, and that may be a bizarre question, but I thought it was kind of something I wanted to know. If it, encourages people in the vicinity of where they're running.
Well, I always like to say that I personally have run the world. Mm-hmm. So when I've trained people for other marathons in other parts of the world, and I've gone with them, mm-hmm. When they have chosen to go to do a run on their own in any of these parts of the world. So I think that when you're here in New York City, which is a wonderful visual, of mm-hmm. course, mm-hmm. It's great to know that there are other places to explore. And so sometimes you might think of yourself running in Africa like a cheetah, mm-hmm. because cheetah, as we know, is the fastest land animal. So it's wonderful to have a visual of running through a beautiful setting, swiftly, quickly, with lots of great movement going on, and really focused on what you're doing.
Yeah, it gives you a little extra. And the cheetah is, like I would say, I don't want to use the mascot, but it's your animal that you use for the running center, like the core of it, that idea of the way they move and their ability to just keep going, and the speed and life. I think they're lithe. I mean, they move like in a way no other animal moves.
Right. They have a spring action going mm-hmm. on. So, and the coloring is just so beautiful. And mm-hmm. when you see them, you just know that they're just galloping at 72 miles per hour, the fastest land animal, of course.
Yes, it's amazing. Now, I know, and I'm not trying to bring up a bad subject, but I know that your mom passed recently this year, but what qualities did she or your dad or your relatives bring your ancestors impart on you, because you are, you're philanthropic, you're a great businesswoman, you're about helping people, healing and being fit. And so what was genetically brought up through you and to you, and do you bring to your work?
Well, my mom was a great inspiration to me. She went out to work as a working woman in the 60s, mm-hmm. before most women left the home to go out to work. Mm-hmm. And so she inspired me to do a lot of wonderful things from early on. I saw that she went out to work. I wanted to do something myself as well. but I think you may know that I'm a former fashion designer.
Right.
And she used to sew my clothes for me and make these wonderful outfits and really kind of give me an uplifting feeling that I was quite unique. And she was as well. So I think that I chose a very unique business to go into as a running coach because that kind of, I segued from doing these wonderful fashion designs and then into helping people learn how to run. And I often like to say that I went from measuring patterns to measuring courses for my runners. But back to my mom and dad, they were working class people, but they inspired hard work and diligence and integrity. A lot of integrity was in my home, and I feel that I bring that to my business as well.
And it shows. Also, I wanted to ask you, who are among some of the athletes who impress you in their concentration and discipline? It could be some of your own runners, but or just in any of the sport world or running world or athletic world.
Well, in terms of a professional athlete, I like to really look into the competitive nature of running in Central Park and seeing that it's a wonderful sport that New York City really opens up its arms to. And so within the running community here, there are many great role models, and not specifically anyone's name, but the fact that we all line up together at a race or at a group run. It doesn't matter whether you're fast, you're mid-pack, or you're slow. Everyone pretty much respects each other. And so there's a lot of camaraderie that goes on in this sport because of that, because you're all lining up on the same field, and because certain runs and races are 5,000 people.
Yes.
Where else do you get that in a sport that's, so individual and at the same time...
A community.
Community, exactly.
That's great. Okay, well, we're going to take a moment for an offering, and when we get back, Mindy will share how she went about creating the first and only running studio in New York City, and you won't want to miss that. We'll see you in just a moment. We're back with Mindy. Mindy, you mentioned, and of course I don't have to talk about it too much, but you, I guess from your mom and your, making the wonderful clothes, you did choose fashion design as an early career, and then sports marketing. And I wonder, fashion first, marketing of sports second, and when did we, how did you pursue those dreams, and how did the transition to, where we are now occur?
It was definitely a segue that was unexpected. So I've always said that I chose the fashion field, but the sport of running and coaching chose me. I was a designer. I lived in Philadelphia. I often went to New York for a lot of fashion that I designed and work that I did there. But then one summer, in the summer of 1989, I went to running camp in Vermont, and it changed my life. I realized that actually as a runner I was pretty good. I didn't know that I was that good, and I was being coached, and that's also how sports marketing was starting in the early 90s. And so I kind of put two and two together, and I said I wanted to change my life a little bit, and I wanted to change my career, although I loved the fashion business, but I did see something there with being able to help more people, being able to make a positive impact in people's lives. So I went to NYU for a certificate course in sports marketing, and then I went for coaching certification and personal training certification. And through the years, I just developed this business. It sort of just came upon me, and one thing led to another, and voila, all of a sudden I had a business, and I named it the Running Center.
Which is great. I want to ask too, I mean, it sounds so, which it was, but do you think, because I know you work with so many different types of folks, like the way I got to know you was by a friend who was, how old was she when she decided to do that? Was she 64?
She was 66.
66. A friend of mine who chose to do the marathon, and you were her coach. and you work with all different types of folks. Do you think I mean, I know you can go to, train to be a coach and go to school and have mentors, but is there some part of you that was always just that kind of like person that was like not a cheerleader, but encouraging people or saying, you could get a little more out of this if were you always that kind of, because I think that's, you can't teach all of that. You can technically teach it, but to be a coach that can really be effective because with somebody like Rhoda, I'm sure you had to approach her, certain ways and psychologically and,
Exactly. Well, you bring up the word cheerleader, and I was a cheerleader in college for basketball, and that was great fun. And then I realized that I had a lot of passion for the sport of running, and I had compassion for my runners and for the whole movement that was happening in the running world. Also, I'm an extremely organized person, and that is what is very required to be a great running coach, I believe. You have to really study the body. You have to study people's, their times, their heart rates, the distances. It's kind of mathematical, and mathematics is pretty finite. It's pretty organized, and I love that. So it really spoke to me, and I thought, this is great. I can make this great impact, and I love this sport, and I can give back to it, and it's a win-win.
Yeah, because you're winning, they're winning. Did you have like well, use a favorite. That's not really nice because you might have had many. A mentor, like our coach that really spoke to you, and you were like, like that you kind of looked up to for yourself, or a mentor, or one of your teachers that you were like, that they really imparted some really jewels to you?
Well, I think I have to go back to my parents actually for that. I hate to repeat myself, but
it's okay.
But I really didn't have a teacher per se. I mean, my fashion business and my fashion, when I got my bachelor's in fashion in college, it was kind of a whole different feeling. It was a whole different world as opposed to the sports world. But I really think that my parents were the ones who gave me those great values and who inspired me to do whatever I could do. And when I chose fashion, they were behind me. When I chose sports marketing, behind me. When I chose running coach and opening up the running center, they were there for me.
And that's the most important thing, to have people in your corner when you're...
Also, my brother, who is older than me and started to run before me, he inspired me because he got into the sport in the 1970s, and that's when we called it the first running boom. That's when Frank Shorter won the Olympic marathon in 1972, and that kind of spurred this whole movement of a running boom for the sport of running, and not just for Olympic level type of runners, but for the everyman and woman. And my brother got into that, and I used to go to some of his races and watch him perform and compete, and somehow or other I just got addicted to it with him. And as we call it the positive addiction. So it has this wonderful feel that you've got to get it done. You've got to do your run, not necessarily every day, but you want to make sure that you're keeping on the program. It's important to get at least 3 or 4 days a week in to really be fit as a runner.
Right, and I guess too, which is something I wanted to ask about, I was going to ask it later, but I'll ask it now. There's also the whole mental component of the running, because there's, you have to be mentally fit also. And then, like, I wanted to ask you about, they always talk about the wall. So how do you coach your folks? And I know there's like a technical place where the wall is supposed to happen, but depending on who you are as a human being, you might have a couple more before that, or little mini like semi-walls. And, because some people have a tougher, they can go further just the way they're made. So how do you work them through the wall?
Well, at the running center, we have runs that are specific to learning how to push through the wall. And so we a lot of times break up the run into different segments and have a different type of workout for each run that is specific to a particular distance, whether it is a 10K or a half marathon or a marathon. And so before they get to the race, they've already experienced something. And we do something that's called the last 10 miles.